Today I want to talk about rewriting the voice in your head and quieting potentially your worst critic, you. Grab your cup of tea and let's dive into my top 6 tips. Your personal brand begins with your beliefs. It's that inner monologue in your head that shapes the way that you show up. Sometimes it can be brave and bold, and other times it can be harsh and hesitant and lead to self-sabotage. Your personal brand is more than your LinkedIn, your logos, and your language. It goes beyond branding. It is personal. The stories that you tell yourself forms the foundation of your personal brand long before you have ever made a first impression on anyone. So let's dive into my tip number 1. Tip number 1 is to rewrite the true story. I once heard someone say that there are 3 types of stories. There are the stories that you tell yourself, the stories that you tell other people, and then there is the truth. You can also tell your stories to yourself through the lens of the victim, the villain, or the hero. Choose the truth story. Choose to tell your story to yourself from the lens of the hero instead of the villain or the victim. Rewrite the story in your head so you can project the true potential of your personal brand. But how do you rewrite the story in your head? That leads nicely into tip number 2, which is to challenge your credibility and to ratio yourself. So if you are telling yourself stories that are victim stories or villain stories, or you are questioning your talents or your capabilities, then try and prove yourself wrong. The term to be ratioed comes from social media, and it's generally not considered a good thing. It is when, for example, you post on X and you might notice that there are a lot more comments instead of retweets or likes for a particular post. And that is generally because it means that people are likely pushing back on what that content is. They are probably disagreeing with it, they are probably mocking it. So take the same approach with your inner critic. Whenever you find yourself being really hesitant or harsh on yourself, consider how you can push back on that thing, how you can challenge the credibility of that critic. From neuroscience to relationship experts, it is generally agreed that we are hardwired for a negativity bias. It means that positive things can slip away as though it is Teflon, and the negative things stick like Velcro. It is said that you need 5 to 10 positive interactions to overcome a negative interaction. So whenever you find yourself telling yourself something that is potentially a little bit more negative, then try and immediately correct that voice in your head with 5 to 10 things that prove yourself wrong. Challenge the credibility of your inner critic. Number 3 is one bad day does not define your career. For every missed opportunity, there will be many more that come your way. For every win that you really wanted but didn't deliver, it will make way for the wins that were actually meant for you. When you have any sort of faux pas happen in your career or in your professional development, it is easy to feel like that can be all-consuming instead of fleeting. That is why it is important to think bigger, to see it in the perspective of your career as a whole. So something that could feel all-consuming then starts to look really tiny. If you start to zoom out on that picture, you will start to notice that it becomes really insignificant. Number 4 is to be open to constructive criticism. Now, I know the cliche is to kill your inner critic or to silence your inner critic, but what if you could listen to your inner critic with some level of curiosity? That is without becoming completely consumed by the voice in your head that makes you not believe in your potential or holds you back from the things that you could be achieving, but just listening with curiosity. I almost like to see this a little bit like meditation. It's about that idea of just noticing the feelings or the ideas without judgment, just observing what it is that your inner critic is maybe trying to tell you. And think about if there is potentially just an ounce of truth in what it is that it is saying. And that is not about letting your inner critic hold you back, but listening if there is room for improvement. If your inner critic is trying to tell you that there is an opportunity that it is trying to highlight to you for you to be able to improve in a particular space. Number 5 is don't let your limiting decisions become limiting beliefs. One of my biggest takeaways from neurolinguistics programming, NLP, was this idea of limiting beliefs actually stemming from limiting decisions. It means that you made the decision to have that particular belief, and it was likely caused by a particular event. And when you become aware of thinking about limiting beliefs in that way, it makes it a little bit easier to spot when that potential limiting decision is being made. So if today hasn't been a great day for your business, your career, or your personal brand, then try and make sure that today isn't the day where you make a limiting decision that sets in motion a long-term limiting belief. Don't let today be the day that you stopped believing in your idea or in your talent. Let today be the day that you felt the feeling that you are currently feeling and you chose to move on anyway, that you kept going. Let today be the day that you look back on this experience and you remember that you chose to move forward and to push past the potential limiting belief. And number 6 is to refer to your wins folder. I talked about this in my previous episode on a Friday reset routine. I mentioned that I once heard someone talk about keeping a folder in your inbox that is full of the emails that made you feel particularly good. Maybe it was a compliment from a customer, maybe it was a really great interaction with a colleague. And I have tried to do this offline outside of my emails to evolve this further, to put in things that feel like a win in other areas outside of my inbox. So create a wins folder. And so when you are potentially having those down days or those down periods, refer to your wins folder to remind yourself of your talents, your skills, and your achievements, and all of the potential that you have to offer the marketplace. Thanks so much. Subscribe for more like this, and I'll see you in the next episode.